I was 30 years old the night my younger sister slapped me across the face in front of 200 people at her oceanfront wedding, and for a moment, I truly thought the world had stopped spinning. The ballroom lights glittered off crystal chandeliers, frozen mid-sparkle. The band choked to a halt on the last note of a love song. Guests clutched champagne flutes that trembled just enough to make the bubbles shiver. I swear I could hear the Atlantic outside the windows go silent, and somehow through all of it I tasted salt on my tongue, not from tears, but from the shock of knowing Lily had actually done it. My own sister, my baby sister, the one I used to braid hair for before school, the one I held when thunderstorms terrified her. Now she stood there in a wedding gown I helped pay for, her hand still hovering in the air like she wasn't sure whether to hit me again. That slap wasn't just anger. It was a message, a warning, a demand I refused to meet. And before I tell you how I ended up on that stage with 200 strangers staring at my humiliation like it was entertainment, I need to take you back to the weeks before the wedding, when everything still looked normal on the outside but was already rotting underneath. I should have noticed the cracks earlier, the small changes in Lily's voice. The way she said my name with sweetness stretched too thin, like cellophane about to tear. The way she circled around the topic of my penthouse as if she were testing the strength of invisible fences. But it truly began 2 months before the wedding, on a humid Charleston evening, when Lily asked me to meet her for drinks. I remember stepping into the rooftop bar, the sunset spilling peach and gold over the harbor. Lily waved from a corner table. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect smile. I thought maybe she had good news, a promotion, an engagement plan. Maybe she genuinely wanted to reconnect as sisters. But the first thing she said wasn't hello. "You look tired, Ava. Everything okay? You've been so distant." I blinked. "Distant? I've been working double shifts all week." She gave a soft, rehearsed laugh. "Right, work. You bury yourself in it so much you forget you have a family." There it was, that subtle jab she'd started using. I ignored it. "How's the wedding planning going?" I asked, trying to steer us into safer waters. But Lily leaned forward, fingers drumming on the table. "I've been thinking," she said, "about after the wedding, about where Brett and I are going to live." "Oh?" I took a sip of water, uneasy without knowing why. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "We're struggling with the housing market. Everything's insanely expensive. But I realized something. You have a place with plenty of room." My chest tightened. "My place?" I asked carefully. Lily lit up, mistaking my caution for agreement. "Your penthouse is perfect for us. And it's not like you're using all that space. You're one person, Ava. It'll be better for everyone if we start our life together there." My pulse thudded in my ears. "Lily, that's my home." She waved a hand like it was a small detail. "You could move into something smaller, cozier. You always say you want a simpler life." I hadn't said anything remotely close to that, ever. "And besides," she added, voice softening into that guilt-laced sweetness she used when she wanted something, "it's what Mom and Dad would have wanted." That line hit me like a punch. She knew it would. "Lily," I tried again, "I bought that penthouse with my own money, my savings, my work. It's the one thing in my life I built entirely by myself." Something flickered in her expression. Irritation, quickly buried. "You don't have to decide now," she said lightly. "But it would make the wedding so special if you announced something meaningful during the toast." I froze. "Announced what?" I asked, dread rising. "Oh, I don't know," she shrugged too casually. "Something about giving us your penthouse." There it was, spoken clearly for the first time. "No," I said, calm and firm. Lily's smile snapped like a stretched rubber band. "No? No," I repeated. "Absolutely not." Her eyes iced over. "You're going to regret saying that." The evening ended awkwardly. She left in a storm of perfume and bitterness, and I walked home trying to shake the uncomfortable truth clinging to me like humidity. Lily didn't want help. She wanted ownership of my home, of my stability, of the one part of my life untouched by her expectations. Over the next few weeks, the tension tightened like a wire between us. She called less often but asked sharper questions. Brett showed sudden interest in property values. A bridesmaid hinted the wedding reception would have huge surprises. And Lily kept dropping pointed remarks. "You'll do the right thing during the toast. You want me to be happy, don't you? Ava, don't make things complicated." Complicated? That was her word for boundaries. I remember the morning I realized something bigger was coming. I was at the penthouse balcony watering my herbs when my building's security desk called. "Ms. Greenwood," the guard said cautiously, "your sister's here. She says she has permission to go up." My stomach twisted. "No," I said quickly. "She doesn't. Please don't let her into my unit without my approval." The guard hesitated. "She insisted she lives here part-time." "What?" I nearly dropped the watering can. "She said you've been preparing the place for her and her fiancé." My hands shook. "Do not let her in." That night, Lily texted me 3 paragraphs accusing me of turning my back on family, embarrassing her, and hoarding resources like a selfish stranger. I didn't reply. I should have realized silence was gasoline to her ego. By the time her wedding week arrived, I could feel the storm coming. She barely spoke to me except through others. Her bridesmaids acted strangely around me, stiff smiles, 2 polite greetings. Brett avoided eye contact. Aunt Sharon whispered every time I entered a room. Something was building, something ugly. But nothing prepared me for the moment her hand collided with my face under all those glittering lights. For the moment, my world broke in front of 200 witnesses. And for the moment, I realized the worst part wasn't the slap. It was that Lily had planned every second of it. I woke up the morning after that rooftop conversation with a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. Charleston sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor, warming the hardwood, but it didn't reach me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Lily's words over and over, like a bad song I couldn't turn off. "You'll regret saying that." I kept hearing it, sharp, cold, certain, like a promise, not a warning. I told myself she'd cool off, that she'd call with her usual chirpy voice, pretending nothing happened, that maybe she'd even apologize. But the silence stretched across that day like a rope tightening around my ribs. By noon, I tried distracting myself by cleaning the kitchen, wiping surfaces that didn't need wiping, organizing drawers already organized, polishing things that didn't shine anyway. My hands needed motion, because my mind wasn't settling. Everything looked normal in my penthouse. The soft gray walls I painted myself, the bookshelf I assembled after 3 YouTube tutorials, the couch I spent months saving for. It had always been my sanctuary. But that morning, even my home felt watched. As if Lily had left her voice inside the walls, whispering accusations. I tried calling her, straight to voicemail. I tried texting her, delivered, not read. By mid-afternoon, she had posted 2 Instagram stories, one laughing with bridesmaids at a dress fitting, one hugging Brett. Not a single acknowledgement that we'd argued last night about something life-changing. It was like she'd pressed a mute button on me, and I didn't know it then, but that was the first sign of something she would weaponize again and again, silence as punishment. Around 5, my building's front desk called. "Ms. Greenwood, your sister is here again." My stomach dropped. "Again?" "This morning she came by, asked about guest access. She's back now, says she needs to speak with you urgently." Urgent. That word never meant good news with Lily. "Please tell her I'm not available," I said. The guard lowered his voice. "She insisted she has the right to come in." I closed my eyes. "She doesn't. Not without my permission." Understood. But when he hung up, I stood frozen in my kitchen, the hum of my refrigerator suddenly too loud. She had never tried to enter my home unannounced before, never acted like it belonged to her. It hit me then. Lily wasn't just angry, she was escalating. That night she finally texted me, A single line. "You hurt me today." That was it. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd asked of me. Just a guilt-laced accusation meant to pull me back into orbit around her. I typed and erased responses. Everything sounded either too angry or too passive. In the end, I didn't answer at all, and that silence once again became gasoline. The next morning, Brett called me. His voice was calm, almost polite. "Ava, can we talk?" "No," I said immediately. He sighed. "Look, I know Lily can be intense, but you blindsided her. You've always been the stable one. She counted on you." "Counted on me to give her my home?" I snapped. There was a pause. Then he said softly, "It would really help us, you know. We're drowning here." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. "Your financial problems aren't my responsibility." Brett's tone hardened. "Your family. Family doesn't demand things like that." "Well," he said, the politeness scraped raw, "maybe you're not understanding the bigger picture." I hung up before he could explain what that bigger picture was. But I knew. Everyone in my life, Lily, Brett, Aunt Sharon, had always believed I'd be the responsible one, the fixer, the glue, the dependable older sister who never asked for anything and always came through. The idea that I might draw a line? To them, that was betrayal. For the next week, the air between us grew colder. Lily kept her distance, but not completely. She sent little jabs through text. "I don't know what Brett said, but you hurt his feelings. You're making the wedding harder than it needs to be. You know I've always supported you." Supported me. That word burned. Lily had never supported anything except her own priorities. I tried to focus on work, but even my coworker Jess noticed my distraction. "You look like you're about to cry or punch someone," she said gently. "My sister," I muttered, rubbing my forehead. "She's different lately." "Different how?" "Like she wants something from me, and she thinks she's entitled to it." Jess raised an eyebrow. "Is this about your place?" I froze. "How did you—" She posted something online about big gifts coming from family. I assumed she meant you. My breath stalled. Lily had already begun planting seeds, crafting a narrative where giving her the penthouse wasn't an absurd demand but an expected gesture. That night, I walked past the mirror in my hallway and caught my reflection. I didn't look like myself. My shoulders hunched, my eyes tired, my expression wary, as if I were waiting for something to strike. I held onto the railing of the balcony outside and watched the harbor lights flicker across the water. The city felt peaceful from above, boats cutting slow trails across the bay, the sky dimming into indigo. The world looked calm. But inside I felt like I was cracking. I didn't want to resent my own sister. I didn't want to think of her as someone dangerous. But every interaction, every message, every silence made me feel like I was slipping into a place where love and fear blurred. Then came the bridal shower. Aunt Sharon invited me, though the message felt more like a summons. "We need to talk," she'd written. "You've upset Lily. Come make peace." Make peace. Another phrase that meant give in. When I arrived at Sharon's house, Lily was at the center of the living room, everyone surrounding her like petals around a flower. She lit up the moment she saw me, not with joy, but triumph. "Oh, look," she said loudly, "she came." I forced a smile. "Hi, Lily." She hugged me too tightly, whispering hotly into my ear, "Don't ruin today." I pulled back, shaken. The room smelled like roses and vanilla cake. Pink decorations covered every surface. The bridesmaids hovered near Lily, shooting me looks that were polite on the surface but sharp underneath. Aunt Sharon clinked her glass. "Everyone," she said, "we need a moment of family unity." My throat tightened. Unity meant pressure. Lily stepped forward. "I want to make sure we're all aligned before the wedding," she said sweetly, "especially about the reception." I stood stiff, dread rising. "Ava's giving a toast," she continued, "a special one." A few bridesmaids clapped. Aunt Sharon smiled. I swallowed hard. "I'm doing a toast, yes, but not—" Lily raised her hand sharply. "You promised." My skin prickled. No, I didn't. She stepped close, her voice low but venomous. Don't embarrass me. Something snapped inside me. I'm not giving you my home, I whispered fiercely. Not now, not ever. The entire room went silent. Aunt Sharon looked as if I'd confessed to a crime. The bridesmaids stared. Lily's smile cracked like glass. You'll regret that, she whispered. A chill slid down my spine. It felt less like a threat and more like a prophecy. That night, when I finally escaped to my car, I sat behind the wheel trembling. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My breath came too fast. My sister wasn't just upset, she was planning something. And I didn't know it yet, but the stage for the wedding trap was already built. Lights ready, cameras ready, 200 witnesses waiting. And Lily? She was counting on me walking right into it. I didn't sleep the night after the bridal shower. I tossed under my sheets, replaying Lily's voice, low, cold, deliberate, when she whispered, You'll regret that. It chased me through the dark like a shadow that refused to disappear. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in Aunt Sharon's living room, smiling like a woman who had already chosen her battlefield. By morning, my body felt hollow. I stood in my kitchen staring at my coffee maker, watching the steam rise but not tasting anything. The penthouse, usually the one place that grounded me, felt claustrophobic, as if every wall held an echo of Lily's threat. I kept telling myself she was emotional, overwhelmed, stressed from planning a wedding. But another part of me, the part that had survived every childhood storm she caused, knew better. This wasn't about emotion, it was about entitlement. That afternoon, I forced myself to go into the marketing firm. Work had always been my escape, the place where no one cared about my family drama, only deadlines, analytics, client briefs. But the moment I stepped into the office, Jess moved toward me with wide eyes. Hey, she said softly. Are you okay? I bit the inside of my cheek. Is it that obvious? You're pale as drywall. You look like you haven't slept in 3 days, and you're walking like you're waiting for someone to jump out and stab you. Well, I muttered, dropping my bag onto my desk, that's not far from how it feels. Jess sat on the edge of my desk. Let me guess, your sister? I nodded. Did something else happen? I hesitated, then nodded again. She's planning something, and she isn't even hiding it. Jess frowned. Ava, are you safe? The question tightened something in my chest. Safe. The word felt too fragile. Physically, yes, I said. Emotionally, mentally? I shook my head. Not even close. Before Jess could reply, my phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Sharon. Be a good sister this week. She needs you. Don't make this harder. I stared at it until the letters blurred. Jess leaned over my shoulder. Oh, hell no, she muttered. That's not support. That's manipulation. I swallowed hard. That's how my family communicates. Guilt first, love second. Jess squeezed my arm. You don't deserve that. But even her words couldn't drown out the growing unease inside me. Later that day, during lunch, I stepped outside to get air. The October humidity wrapped around me like a damp blanket. I walked toward the waterfront where sailboats drifted lazily across the blue-green tide. People laughed, jogged, ate ice cream. They looked so normal. I wished I felt even a fraction of that normal. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Lily. Need to talk. It's important. I didn't want to reply. I didn't want to give her another opening. But the knot in my stomach tightened. I typed, About what? Her answer came instantly. About your toast. The announcement. The rehearsal dinner is Friday. We need to rehearse what you'll say. My fingers froze. My palms went cold. I read the message 3 times before my legs finally moved, pulling me to the nearest bench. I sat down, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles whitened. She wasn't just hoping I'd give her the penthouse. She expected it. She was planning the moment. She was writing the script. And she had cast me as her obedient supporting character. My pulse hammered. I typed slowly, "There is no announcement. There never will be. Stop asking." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then disappeared. Finally, her response came. "We'll talk later, in person." A chill ran through me. I knew that tone. Lily wasn't negotiating, she was preparing. When I returned to the office, my boss, Mason, pulled me aside. "You okay?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe of his office. "I'm fine," I lied. He studied me in silence. "You're one of my best employees. If something's wrong, take time off." Time off. The irony almost made me laugh. Time off meant more time for Lily to corner me, more time for her to orchestrate whatever plan she was building. "I'll be fine," I repeated, even though I knew I wouldn't. By evening, I was back in my penthouse, standing at my balcony doors, staring at the glowing harbor lights. The city reflected in the water, long streaks of gold and white. Behind me, the room felt too quiet. Then my building's intercom buzzed. I flinched. "Ms. Greenwood," the guard said, sounding uncomfortable. "Your sister is downstairs." My heart dropped. "She says she needs to speak with you right now." I pressed my palm against the marble counter, steadying myself. "Tell her I'm not available." "She said she'll wait." I closed my eyes. Of course she would. "How long has she been there?" "Almost 30 minutes. I pressed my lips together. Lily had always been relentless. When she wanted something, she didn't stop until she pushed the world into giving it to her. "Please ask her to leave," I said. I could hear the guard hesitate. "She's emotional." "Then she should go home." I hung up before he could argue. For the next hour, I paced the penthouse. Every knock of the elevator echoed in my bones. Every shadow on the balcony reflections made me jump. My heartbeat felt out of sync, like it was trying to escape my chest. Finally, at 10:14 p.m., I received a single text. From Lily, "You're doing this to yourself." I didn't respond. The next morning, she posted a vague message on Facebook. "Funny how some people show their true colors right before a wedding. Family can be disappointing." Underneath, dozens of comments flooded in. "You don't deserve that, babe." "You're the sweetest person alive." "Cut toxic people out before the big day." "So excited for the wedding." "Haters gonna hate." I felt the anger rising up my throat like bile. She was painting me as the villain, the ungrateful sister, the bitter one, the problem. And no one knew the truth, that she was orchestrating a public ambush meant to strip me of my home. That afternoon, I found out something that made my stomach flip. Jess burst into my office. "Ava, oh my God!" I looked up, confused. "What?" She handed me her phone. "Look at this." On Lily's Instagram story was a poll. Should family give big gifts at weddings? Options: absolutely. If they love you, yes. Thousands of views, hundreds of votes, comments flooding in. Yes, family should support the newlyweds. Parents and siblings should step up. Big gifts show love. My sister gave us her condo. Best gift ever. My blood ran cold. She was setting the stage, framing the expectation, priming an audience. She wanted every guest at the wedding to believe a huge gift from me was the norm, that not giving her my penthouse would make me look heartless. Jess whispered, "She's preparing a trap." I closed my eyes. Deep down, I had known. But seeing it this blatant made something break inside me. Cleanly, sharply, like a snapped wire. My sister didn't want my presence. She didn't want my love. She wanted my property. She wanted to take from me the one thing I had built without anyone's help. And she wasn't going to stop until she got it. That night, as I stood in my silent apartment, staring out at the dark Charleston water, I realized something terrifying. Lily wasn't just manipulating me. She was preparing to destroy me publicly if I didn't give her what she wanted. And the wedding? That wasn't just an event. It was the perfect stage. The perfect trap, the perfect opportunity. 200 guests, 200 witnesses, 200 phones recording, and Lily, my own sister, was counting on the pressure to force me to surrender. But she didn't know something. I was done being her target, done being her ATM, done being her silent shadow. She hadn't realized yet. I was preparing too. I didn't want to go to the bridesmaids' brunch. Every cell in my body fought it. But skipping it would only give Lily ammunition, another chance for her to paint me as the problem. So I chose the polite battlefield over the silent one, and drove to the pastel blue Charleston townhouse where her maid of honor lived. The second I stepped inside, I knew I didn't belong there. Everything was white lace, pink champagne, and curated perfection. A flower wall shimmered with faux peonies and gold script spelling Bride Tribe. A mimosa bar glittered with crystal flutes. The women all wore matching robes printed with lilies, fitting in a nauseating way. When I walked in, conversations dimmed just slightly. Not enough for a stranger to notice, but enough that I felt the shift. All eyes, all smiles too wide, too practiced. Lily turned toward me, her grin bright enough to blind. You'd never know she had threatened me 2 nights before. "Ava," she cooed. "You made it." I forced a smile. "Of course." She glided over, kissed my cheek, and murmured in a voice only I could hear. "Try not to ruin today, too." I felt the sting before the words even landed, but I didn't flinch. That would be giving her what she wanted. She pulled back and squeezed my hand like a loving sister, an actress hitting her mark. The brunch passed slowly, painfully. Lily soaked in the attention, her ring, her dress, her plans, her fairy tale. Every story she told was a performance, every laugh rehearsed. Every glance toward me was a subtle reminder. You don't matter unless I say you do. Halfway through, the maid of honor, Julia, clinked a spoon against her glass. "Before we toast," she said sweetly, "we have a fun little game." Groans and giggles filled the room. Julia held up a stack of cards. I asked Lily and Brett to answer questions separately. Let's see how well they know each other. A classic bridal shower game. Innocent enough. Until Julia said, "And at the end we'll read Lily's answer to the bonus question about the most meaningful part of the wedding." Lily's eyes snapped to mine. My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what that question would be. I sat still, my fingers tightening around my napkin while they cruised through the trivia. First date, favorite movie, who said, "I love you," first. Laughter bounced off the walls. Champagne fizzed. The sugary smell of pastries made me queasy. Then Julia lifted the last card. "Okay, and here's the bonus." Lily's posture straightened, eager, glowing. "What," Julia read, "is the biggest, most meaningful gift you expect to receive at the wedding?" The room fell quiet with anticipation. Lily smiled, slow and triumphant. She looked directly at me. I braced myself. Julia turned the card and read aloud, "A home, a fresh start in a place where our future family can grow." A few bridesmaids gasped. One pressed her hands over her heart. "That's beautiful," someone murmured. Another added, "That's the best wedding gift ever." Lily wasn't even pretending to hide the trap anymore. This wasn't subtle. This was setting the expectation publicly, normalizing it, making it seem generous, sweet, deserved. I felt dozens of eyes peek toward me, quick glances, curious glimmers. Lily leaned across the table, her voice soft and angelic. I didn't say who it's from yet. Her eyes sparkled with something sharp. "Did you want to guess, Ava?" It was a knife disguised as an invitation. My throat tightened, my pulse hammered. The room spun, not dramatically but quietly, like the air had thinned. I gave a small smile, steady but cold. "No, I'm sure you have your own plans." "Nah." Lily blinked, surprised I hadn't taken the bait. Julia moved on quickly, sensing tension she couldn't quite define. When the brunch ended, I stayed behind to help clean up, mostly to avoid being cornered by Lily outside. Julia packed leftover pastries into boxes while humming softly. When she finally looked at me, her expression dimmed. "She's under a lot of stress," she said carefully. "That's generous," I replied. Julia hesitated. "Ava, she's been saying things." My chest tightened. "What kind of things?" "She said you've been acting strange, withdrawing, making her worried." "Of course she did." Julia fidgeted with a stack of plates. "I honestly didn't know what to believe. But seeing you today, you seem normal. Tired maybe, but not—" She stopped. Not how she described. Described. Past tense. Like Lily had been building a narrative. "She said you were dealing with mental health issues," Julia whispered. "That's why I'm telling you, so you're not blindsided." My breath stilled. "What?" "She said you've been paranoid, forgetting things, making impulsive decisions." My blood froze. She was laying groundwork, preparing witnesses, preparing testimony, preparing a case. And I suddenly knew, like a punch to the gut, Lily's plan was much bigger than a public announcement. She wasn't just trying to get my penthouse. She was preparing to paint me as unstable, unfit, unreliable, the kind of person whose word couldn't be trusted, whose decisions might need to be overseen. I sat down hard in a nearby chair. "Thank you for telling me." Julia looked relieved. "I didn't want you walking into the wedding without knowing." I left the brunch with a hollow ache in my chest. Outside, the Charleston sun was blinding, reflecting off the cobblestones and pastel houses like nothing bad could ever happen there. But something bad was happening, and it was accelerating. That evening, I visited my aunt, someone I foolishly still hoped would be on my side. She greeted me at her porch with a forced smile. "Ava, sweetheart, I've been waiting to talk to you." Inside, she poured sweet tea into mismatched glasses. Her house smelled like lemon polish and old books. I'd always loved that smell. It reminded me of childhood summers. But tonight it felt different. "Aunt Sharon," I started. "Lily is—" She raised a hand. "Ava, your sister is getting married. She needs support, not friction." I stared at her. "You don't even know what happened." She sighed dramatically. "She said you've been lashing out, that you've been volatile." The word sliced through me. Volatile. That wasn't just criticism. It was character assassination. "Aunt Sharon," my voice cracked. "She's lying." "Is she?" Sharon asked softly. "Or are you refusing to see how much she needs from you right now?" I sat back, stunned. "She wants my home." Aunt Sharon didn't react with the shock I expected. Instead, she exhaled. "Ava, you're one person living in a huge place. Lily wants children. She needs space. She deserves a chance." I stared at her, my hands trembling. "I worked for that penthouse. I earned it. It's my security." "And Lily is your family," Sharon pressed. "Family sacrifices." I felt the room tilt. "I've sacrificed for her my whole life." Her voice softened. "Then what's one more thing?" Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, but cleanly, like a thread pulling free. "One more thing?" I whispered. "Lily has taken things from me for 20 years. My time, my money, my peace. And now she wants the roof over my head?" Aunt Sharon's expression hardened. "Ava, she said you'd react this way." My breath hitched. "She said what?" "She said you'd make everything about you, that you'd twist it, that you'd refuse to help even if it was the right thing." I stared at the woman who had once read bedtime stories to me. "You already chose her side," I said. Silence. Outside, cicadas buzzed in the darkening air. A dog barked somewhere down the street. I felt detached from everything, like someone had cut a rope tying me to the moment. I stood slowly. "Thank you for the tea." "Ava," Sharon said gently, "don't make this harder." I didn't answer. I walked out of her house feeling like the world had shrunk, turning familiar faces into strangers. When I got home, the penthouse felt different, less like a refuge, more like a fortress someone was trying to breach. I poured a glass of water, set it on the counter, and stared at the city lights blinking against the night sky. My hands trembled, my heart pounded, but then something steadier rose inside me. Something colder, something stronger. Resolve. For the first time in our lives, I saw Lily clearly. Not as my sister, not as the girl I grew up protecting, but as a woman who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. And she was gathering allies, creating a narrative, preparing witnesses. This wasn't a fight about a penthouse. This was a coordinated campaign by a woman who wanted my life. And I knew with chilling certainty. The wedding was going to be the war zone, and the slap? That wasn't the beginning. It was the first bullet. By the time the rehearsal dinner rolled around, I felt like I was walking into enemy territory. Every instinct in my body warned me not to go, but every voice in my family, real or imagined, whispered that skipping it would only give Lily more ammunition. So I forced myself into a slate blue dress, tied my hair back, and drove to the historic Charleston Inn where the dinner was being held. The moment I stepped through the arched doorway, I felt dozens of eyes flicker toward me. Not openly hostile, not openly welcoming, just assessing, measuring, waiting. Lily had been busy. The dining hall was beautiful, exposed brick washed in golden light, long wooden tables draped in eucalyptus garlands, candles flickering in hurricane glass. A string quartet played in the corner. Plates of oysters, shrimp, and bite-sized crab cakes made the air smell like the harbor. But beneath all the elegance, I felt the tension like static electricity. It crackled the moment I entered the room. Brett's mother spotted me first. She gave a tight smile touched with sympathy and approached. "Ava," she said gently, "how nice of you to come." It was the tone people used at funerals. "Of course I came," I replied. She squeezed my arm with a firmness that surprised me. "Be patient with her. Weddings. Bring out emotions." I nodded even though my pulse jumped. Then I saw Lily. She stood at the head of the room, radiant in a white rehearsal dress that shimmered under the lights. Her hair was curled perfectly, her skin glowing, her smile bright and warm, until her eyes met mine. Then her expression shifted, not dramatically but enough. Displeasure, contempt, calculation. She excused herself from a group of guests and drifted toward me, her steps slow and graceful, like a swan gliding toward a target beneath the water. "You're late," she murmured. "I'm 10 minutes early." She tilted her head, amusement flickering over her lips. "In your world, maybe. In mine, you're late." There was no point arguing. I inhaled, exhaled, and prepared for impact. "I need to talk to you," she continued softly. "Privately." "Lily, don't. This isn't a choice." She grabbed my wrist, not enough to hurt but enough to control, and guided me toward a side hallway lined with vintage photographs. Her perfume, sweet, floral, nauseating, wrapped around me like a rope. When we were alone, she released my wrist and folded her hands, composure snapping into place. "Let's skip the pleasantries," she said. "Tomorrow is the wedding. You know what you're supposed to do." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I won't be announcing anything about the penthouse." A small, brittle smile flickered across her face. "Ava, don't be dramatic." "You've made this dramatic, Lily." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This is the biggest day of my life. Everything has to be perfect, and that includes you doing something meaningful for me." "You want my home," I said quietly. "Not a gift, not support. You want the roof over my head." "It's not like that," she snapped. "It's a symbol, a gesture, a fresh start for me and Brett." "It's theft." Her expression hardened, the mask slipping. "You're being selfish." "I'm being sane," I countered. She stared at me for several seconds, her eyes darkening with something sharp and ugly. Then she whispered, "You have no idea the position you're putting me in." I frowned. "What position?" "People already know," she said. "I've told them. Everyone is expecting something big. If you don't give me the penthouse, it will humiliate me. Ice slid down my spine. "You told people?" I said, voice barely above a whisper. She didn't even pretend to deny it. "Of course. You had your chance to be the generous big sister. Now the narrative is in motion." "Lily, if you don't announce it," she continued, "you'll make me look like a fool, and I will not let that happen." Something inside me snapped. "Stop trying to weaponize your wedding." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Everyone uses their wedding. Social currency is a thing." I stared at her. "This isn't currency. This is abuse." She fell silent for a moment, like the word hit her harder than she expected. Then she leaned in until only inches separated us. "Ava, if you don't give me that penthouse tomorrow, I swear you'll regret it more than anything in your life." I took a step back. "Are you threatening me?" She shrugged. "If that's how you choose to interpret it?" My breath trembled. "I'm not giving you my home, and I'm not participating in whatever spectacle you're planning." Her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "You will." Or what? "Or I will make sure every single person in that ballroom sees you for what you really are." "And what's that?" I asked, her eyes narrowed. "A selfish, unstable woman who can't even support her own family." A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. "That's not who I am. It's who they think you are." I stared at her, stunned. "You really think you can control the truth?" Lily smiled, a slow, venomous curl of lips. "The truth," she murmured, "is whatever people believe." She brushed past me, her dress grazing my hip like a warning, and glided back toward the dining hall. Voices rose, laughter, glasses clinked, music played, life moved on. But I stayed frozen in the hallway, my pulse racing. I knew one thing with certainty. Tomorrow wouldn't just be a wedding, it would be a battlefield. The rehearsal dinner carried on like a show. Lily was dazzling, charming, magnetic. Guests adored her. Brett toasted her beauty and poise. Mothers cried, fathers bragged, bridesmaids squealed about tomorrow. And every so often, Lily glanced toward me with that same cold smile, like she was reminding me of the script she had written. Halfway through dinner, Brett's aunt leaned toward me. "Lily told us she's so grateful for you. She said you're giving her the most meaningful gift of all." My heart sank. "What did she say I was giving her?" I asked. "A home," she said warmly. "Something that will set her and Brett up for life." I swallowed hard. "She said that?" "Oh yes, she said she couldn't wait for the announcement." The room tilted. My hands shook under the table. This wasn't just manipulation. She had prepared witnesses, scripted reactions, preceded expectations. She had created a public narrative so strong that my refusal would look like cruelty, and everyone would pity her, everyone would judge me. The dinner ended with applause, toasts, and camera flashes. Guests drifted out with hugs and excitement for the big day. Lily basked in the attention, the perfect bride. I walked to my car slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I reached the driver's seat, I didn't start the engine. I sat there, staring at the steering wheel as my breath hitched. I had never felt so cornered. Not as a child, competing for scraps of love. Not as a teenager, covering Lily's mistakes. Not even as an adult, writing checks she never repaid. This was different. This was calculated, strategic, cruel. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I picked it up, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Greenwood, please call me when possible. I believe you may need legal advice. Judge R. Hale." My blood ran cold. I stared at the message, heart thundering. A judge, at the rehearsal dinner? No, someone who had heard whispers? Someone connected to the venue? Someone who had been watching quietly? Another message came. "Your sister has made concerning statements. I will explain when we speak." I leaned back in my seat, the weight of the evening pressing down on me. Tomorrow, Lily expected me to stand beside her and deliver her fantasy. But tomorrow, a judge would be in the room, watching, listening. and for the first time, I felt the faintest flicker of hope. Because if Lily wanted a public battle, she was about to get one. And this time, I wouldn't be standing alone. I woke up the morning before the wedding with a pit in my stomach so heavy it felt like it had its own heartbeat. My phone buzzed repeatedly on the nightstand. Texts from Jess, reminders from the wedding planner, a missed call from an unknown number I suspected belonged to Judge Hale. But none of it mattered in that moment. All I could feel was dread, thick and suffocating. I sat up slowly, the room blurry in the early light. My penthouse was quiet, the Charleston harbor still half asleep beyond the windows. Nothing in this space had changed, yet everything inside me had. I wasn't just a sister attending a wedding anymore. I was a target. Lily had maneuvered her pieces like she'd studied the board for months. And now she expected to deliver checkmate tomorrow in front of 200 witnesses. I stood, forced myself into the shower, and let the hot water beat against the back of my neck. I tried to breathe, to think, to steady myself. When I finally stepped out, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail, from the unknown number. I pressed play. "Ava, this is Judge Rebecca Hale. I apologize for the intrusion, but I'm concerned. I heard your sister discussing the penthouse at the rehearsal dinner in a way that raised red flags, legally and ethically. Please call me as soon as you're able." My breath hitched. She'd been there. She'd heard enough. She'd recognized something I'd been trying so hard to convince myself wasn't real. I dialed her number before I could lose courage. She answered on the second ring. "Miss Greenwood?" "Yes," I breathed. "Thank you for calling. I don't know what to do." Her voice softened. "I'd like to meet. Some conversations shouldn't happen over the phone. Are you available this morning?" I agreed, barely trusting my voice. We chose a quiet cafe near the courthouse, a place with brick walls, steaming mugs, and a hush that felt safe. When I walked in, she stood to greet me. She was in her mid-50s, elegant silver hair pulled into a low twist, navy blazer crisp and professional. Her eyes, not cold, not harsh, were sharp in the way only people who've seen too much can be. "Thank you for coming," she said, motioning for me to sit. I hadn't realized how much I was shaking until I wrapped my hands around the warm mug the barista brought. "I don't know where to start," I said. "Start with the truth," she replied gently. So I did. I told her about the penthouse, the manipulation, the mounting pressure, the brunch, the rehearsal dinner, the whispered lies Lily had fed to our family, her friends, the guests, the way she was shaping a narrative so carefully it felt like a weapon, and then I told her the part that felt hardest to say aloud. "She threatened me," I whispered, "said I'd regret it if I didn't give her what she wants." Judge Hale didn't flinch. People often threaten family members when power and money are involved. But threats aren't just words, they're strategy. Your sister is building a foundation, a case against your competency, your stability, your credibility. She's using public perception as leverage. A tremor ran through me. "That's exactly what it feels like." "It's because that's what it is," she said calmly. I swallowed hard. "Can she actually do anything, legally?" Judge Hale paused, studying me. "Do you want the truth or the comforting version?" "The truth." "She can try to petition for guardianship, power of attorney, or even emergency intervention if she convinces people you're unwell. Once someone lays groundwork, it's easier than you think." My stomach twisted painfully. "And the wedding?" "Is her stage," she said simply. "Her opportunity to create public evidence. All she needs is enough people saying you acted unstable, erratic, confused, or cruel." I felt dizzy. "She's been planting seeds for weeks." "I know," she said. "I heard her last night telling guests that you were struggling emotionally, that she was worried about you, that you were pulling away, forgetting things." My throat burned. Hearing it from a stranger hurt in a way Lily's own words never could. It made it real. "Why would she do this?" I whispered. Judge Hale folded her hands. "Because you have something she wants, and she believes you don't deserve it as much as she does. Entitlement is a dangerous thing when paired with desperation. I stared at her, voice barely audible. What do I do? She took a breath, her tone steady and decisive, the tone of a woman who had guided countless people through storms worse than mine. You keep your boundaries. You do not hand over your property. You do not respond to bait. And tomorrow you stay calm no matter what happens. That'll look weak, I said. It'll look sane, she corrected. And that's what matters. If she escalates, and she will, you must not, emotionally or physically. I nodded slowly. She reached into her purse and slid a card across the table. This is the name of an attorney I trust. Someone who specializes in family coercion and asset protection. If things escalate after the wedding, call him immediately. I picked up the card with trembling fingers. Thank you. I'll be at the ceremony tomorrow, she added. Not as a judge, as an observer. If something happens, I will be a witness. Just remain composed. The truth is a quiet, steady thing. It reveals itself. Her presence calmed something inside me I hadn't realized was spiraling. We spoke for another 20 minutes, but it wasn't strategy. It was grounding. She reminded me of something I had forgotten. I wasn't alone. When we parted ways, her words echoed through me with unexpected strength. Your sister underestimates you because she sees you through a lens you outgrew years ago. Tomorrow you're going to show her, and everyone else, the woman you actually are. I returned to the penthouse, feeling steadier than I had in days. For the first time, I wasn't drowning. I was swimming, still surrounded by dark water, still unsure of the shore, but moving, not sinking. I spent the afternoon preparing myself mentally. I laid out my dress, I packed a small clutch. I practiced breathing until my pulse slowed, and then, out of nowhere, there was a knock at my door. Sharp, repeated, urgent. My heart lurched. I approached the peephole slowly. It was my mother. And behind her, unmistakably, Lily. My lungs froze. I didn't open the door, but I unlocked the chain just enough to crack it an inch. Ava, my mother said, her tone warm but strained. We need to talk. No, I said softly. Not tonight. Lily stepped forward, expression tight. Stop being dramatic and let us in. I held the door firmly. No. My mother's face twisted with worry. Sweetheart, your sister is distraught. She's been crying all day. Lily wiped beneath her eye, dry, perfectly dry. This is supposed to be the happiest time of my life, and you're ruining it. I felt something inside me harden. I'm not discussing the penthouse, I said. My mother stiffened. Ava, please, that home is far too big for you. Be reasonable. My breath trembled. This isn't about reason. This is about ownership. It's about family, my mother said sharply. It's about supporting your sister. And what about supporting me? I whispered. For once, just once, I wanted her to pick me, to defend me, to protect me. But she didn't even hesitate. You don't need protecting, she said coldly. You've always been the strong one. And there it was. The lifelong justification for every time she'd excused Lily's cruelty. She's fragile. She needs help. She can't handle disappointment. And I, apparently, could handle anything. No, I said, voice steady. Not this. Lily's mask cracked. If you embarrass me tomorrow... I'm not embarrassing you, I whispered. I'm saving myself. She lunged forward like she might wedge herself through the crack in the door. You're going to regret this, she hissed. My voice didn't shake when I answered. No, I'm finally stopping the regret. And I closed the door. My mother called my name twice, knocked again, pleaded, then sighed in frustration. Finally, their footsteps retreated down the hall. I waited until the elevator dinged, then slid down the door, breath shaking. It felt like the earth had cracked open, like something irreversible had happened. But beneath the heartbreak, beneath the fear, beneath the grief of losing the family I'd tried so hard to hold on to, there was steel. Tomorrow would be the battle Lily had been preparing for. But I wasn't walking into it defenseless. Judge Hale would be there. The truth would be there. And for the first time in my life, I would not be silent. I woke up on the morning of the wedding with a kind of stillness I didn't recognize. Not peace. No, peace was too soft for what I felt. This was something sharper. A quiet that hummed under my skin, the kind you hear right before a storm cracks open the sky. Charleston was already bright when I stepped onto my balcony. The harbor glittered like nothing bad could ever happen there. Sailboats bobbed lazily in the distance. People walked dogs, cars honked faintly on the battery. The world was behaving as if today wasn't going to change anything. But I knew better. Today was the day my sister planned to ruin me. Publicly, loudly, permanently, unless I handed over my home like it was a party favor. I sipped lukewarm coffee and tried to swallow past the tightness in my throat. My phone buzzed. "Jess, you ready? Want me to drive you, or slash tires if needed?" I smiled despite everything. No slashing. "I'll meet you there." Another buzz. "Ava, you don't have to go." I stared at the message. For a moment, a long moment, I imagined staying home, curling up on the couch, locking the door, shutting the world out. But Lily would twist that too. Ava is unstable. Ava is unpredictable. Ava ruined my wedding. No. Hiding would only give her more ammunition. "I'm going." I put the phone down and took a deep breath. "You will stay calm," I whispered to myself. "You will not escalate. You will not fold." And somewhere deep inside, a voice I barely recognized answered, "You will not let her win." The wedding venue was a waterfront estate with sprawling lawns, white roses everywhere, and a sparkling canopy stretched above rows of chairs overlooking the harbor. The sun glowed against the water, bouncing light across the entire setup like someone had designed it specifically for photographs. I parked behind the catering vans and walked toward the main entrance, heels clicking against the stone walkway. Guests were already arriving, their laughter floating through the warm morning air. Jess stood near the entrance, waving frantically. "You look gorgeous," she said, grabbing my hands, "but also like you haven't slept since the Civil War." "I'm fine," I said. "You're lying," she replied. "But it's okay, I'll be your escape route if needed." She squeezed my arm, then lowered her voice. "Ava, don't let her corner you, and don't let her twist anything." "I won't." Inside the venue, everything glittered. Chandeliers, marble floors, white tulips, champagne towers. It looked like a magazine spread, expensive, idyllic, curated. But the moment I stepped into the hall, I felt the shift. The eyes, people staring before looking away, whispering, smiling at Lily's mother but not at me. Two bridesmaids turned, saw me, and quickly straightened their posture as if preparing for a show. They already had their roles, and I already had mine, the villain. I took a steady breath, shoulders stiffening. Let them watch. I was done breaking myself to fit Lily's narrative. The ceremony itself was beautiful, painfully beautiful. Lily walked down the aisle like she'd stepped out of a bridal advertisement, radiant, glistening, every detail perfect. Brett cried, guests sighed, children tossed petals in the air, but beneath that beauty was something rotten. A bride who wanted my home more than she wanted my happiness. A sister who weaponized love until it wasn't love anymore. Every time her gaze drifted toward me, there was an edge behind it. Something sharp, something hungry. And sitting 2 rows behind me, deliberately, silently, was Judge Hale. She met my eyes once, gave a small nod. Stay steady. After the vows, the kiss, the applause, guests drifted toward the ballroom where the reception would be held. A string quartet played while servers carried champagne flutes across the room. I tried to breathe, to ground myself. But then someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. It was Brett. His face was tight, nervous. His black suit clung too neatly to his frame. His eyes shifted left and right before settling on mine. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. My pulse quickened. About what? He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I didn't want to get involved, I really didn't, but Lily's emotional today and I'm just trying to keep everything from blowing up. She wants me to give her my penthouse, I said flatly. His shoulders sagged. I know. And you're okay with that? He hesitated. I mean, it would help. Help who? I asked. You or her? He swallowed. Both of us. My stomach twisted. Brett, that place is my life savings, my safety net, my home. I get that, he said, but Lily said you've been having trouble, that you might want to downsize. My breath caught. She said what? That you've been overwhelmed, forgetting things, acting out of character. My jaw tightened. She's lying. He sighed. Maybe. But she's my wife now. I have to trust her. Of course he did. Lily crafted her narrative perfectly. Emotional enough to seem genuine. Fragile enough to seem sympathetic. Vague enough to sound true. I'm not giving you my home, I said, voice steady. He nodded slowly, resigned. Then just, don't make a scene tonight, please. A bitter laugh escaped me. Me? Make a scene? He didn't answer. Just walked away, shoulders slumped. I stood there in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by crystal lights and laughter, feeling like the floor had tilted beneath me. It was clear now. He wasn't a victim. He wasn't confused. He wasn't trapped. He was complicit. The reception began with cheers, clinking glasses, loud music. People danced, ate, celebrated. Tables overflowed with flowers and candles. Lily and Brett looked like royalty as they posed for photos beneath a floral arch. I stayed quiet at my table, Jess beside me trying to anchor me. Breathe, she whispered. She's not winning today. I nodded, but my breath still shook. Then the DJ tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the toasts. My heart dropped. Oh, hell, Jess muttered. Lily turned to me across the room, her smile wide, sparkling, vicious. As maid of honor, the wedding planner announced, we'd love to invite the bride's sister, Ava Greenwood, up to say a few words. The spotlight hit me. I felt every pair of eyes swing in my direction. Phones lifted, cameras pointed, whispers rose. This was it. The moment Lily had orchestrated so perfectly, the moment she expected me to break. Jess grabbed my hand. Ava, you don't have to go up there. But I did, not for Lily, for myself. I stood slowly, smoothed my dress, lifted my chin, and walked toward the stage. Each step echoed like a countdown. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. My palms were damp, but my spine stayed straight. Judge Hale watched intently. Brett watched nervously. Lily watched with the satisfied expression of someone about to win a game they'd rigged from the beginning. I reached the microphone. The room quieted. 200 guests, 200 witnesses, 200 expectations. I took a breath. My name is Ava, I began, and I'm Lily's older sister. My voice was steady. I want to wish Lily and Brett a future filled with kindness, honesty, and mutual respect. A ripple of whispers moved through the room. Lily's face faltered, just slightly. And, I continued, I hope they always remember that love isn't measured in material gifts. It's measured in integrity. Lily stiffened. I knew she wanted me to say it next. The thing she'd told everyone to expect, the announcement she'd rehearsed in her head 100 times. But I didn't. I simply said, that's all. The room went silent, shocked, breathless, confused. Then Lily stood so quickly her chair screeched against the floor. Really? She snapped, voice loud enough to echo. That's it? My chest tightened. You couldn't even do this one thing for me? People shifted uncomfortably. I stepped back from the microphone. I said what I came to say. No, she said sharply, marching toward me. You didn't. Tell them the truth. Tell them what you promised me. I didn't promise you anything. And then, like a flash, her hand whipped across my face. The sound cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. Gasps, screams, phones up everywhere. My cheek burned, my ears rang, my breath stilled. A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Oh my God. Did she just hit her? Is this part of the speech? She slapped her own sister. Lily was panting, eyes wild. You selfish, unstable woman. You'd rather hoard a penthouse than support your own family. Judge Hale stood. Jess stood. Several guests stood. The room erupted. And I stayed still, silent, steady. I looked right at Lily, my sister, my enemy, and knew everything had just changed. Because she hadn't expected this many witnesses. She hadn't expected a judge in the crowd. She hadn't expected me to refuse to break. And as I walked off that stage without a single word, without a single tear, one truth finally crystallized in my bones. She had built her entire plan on the assumption that I would shatter. But I didn't shatter. And that was the beginning of her downfall. I didn't make it 10 steps past the ballroom doors before my legs began to shake. The noise inside, the gasps, the whispers, the rising chaos faded behind me like someone had suddenly stuffed my ears with cotton. All I could hear was the echo of Lily's slap pulsing in my skull. My cheek throbbed in a slow, spreading burn. My breath stuttered. I pressed my palm against the nearest wall, grounding myself against the cold marble. The hallway was dim and quiet, a stark contrast to the glittering circus I'd just walked out of. I closed my eyes, trying to steady the nausea twisting in my stomach. Ava, I turned. Judge Hale stood a few feet away, her expression sharpened like a blade. Not pity, not shock, purpose. Are you hurt? She asked quietly. I shook my head. I'm fine. You're not, she said gently. But you will be. She stepped closer, her heels soft against the carpet. What happened in that room was witnessed by 200 people, recorded by half of them, and it wasn't a family argument. It was an attack. I swallowed hard, the tension lodged in my throat. She wanted to force me into giving her everything. I know, Judge Hale said, and she just made your case stronger than anything you could have said today. What case? I whispered. The case for protecting yourself. Footsteps approached behind her. Jess jogged down the hallway, eyes wide. Oh my God, Ava! She stopped short when she saw the redness on my cheek. She hit you again? That was on camera. All of it. My stomach twisted. I don't want this to be a public scandal. Jess blinked. Ava, she slapped you in front of 200 people at her wedding reception. It's already a public scandal. I lifted a trembling hand to my cheek. The skin felt hot, tender under my fingertips. Judge Hale's voice softened. Do you want to sit? I nodded. She and Jess guided me to a chair tucked under a small hallway table. I sank into it, the weight of everything suddenly crashing over me. I had done it. I had refused Lily's demand, and she had shown the entire world exactly who she really was. But the victory didn't feel sweet. Not yet. It felt like standing barefoot on shattered glass. Jess crouched beside me. Do you want ice, a drink, a getaway car? I huffed out something like a laugh, though it felt hollow. No ice, Judge Hale said sharply. Bruises can be photographed later. My breath hitched. Photographed? For documentation, she replied, because this isn't over. Jess frowned at me. Ava, did you know she was going to do that? No, I whispered. I just knew she was planning something terrible if I didn't give her the penthouse. Jess's expression hardened. Then we need to get you out of here. No. Judge Hale raised a hand. Leaving now would look unstable to Lily's audience. Let her be the one who spirals. I stared at her. Audience? She met my eyes. Trust me, she still thinks she's performing. The ballroom doors swung open somewhere behind us. Loud music flooded the hallway briefly before fading again as the doors closed. Jess leaned closer. I'll stand guard if she comes out here. I almost laughed again, but the ache in my throat made it impossible. Thank you. Judge Hale lowered her voice. Ava, I need to ask you something serious. Has your sister ever been physically aggressive with you before? I inhaled sharply. Not like that, never publicly, but when we were younger she'd push me or throw things during fights. Nothing I'd call abuse, just her temper. Judge Hale nodded slowly. Temper escalates when entitlement escalates, and entitlement escalates when people sense they're losing control. She really thought she could force me, I whispered. She still does, the judge replied, but now she'll have to change tactics. That slap wasn't an end. It was a beginning. A cold dread rippled through me. A beginning of what? Of escalation. I stared at her, throat dry. She's not going to stop, is she? No, she said calmly. Not until you draw legal boundaries. Everything inside me tightened. Legal boundaries? Lily is not acting like a sibling, she said. She's acting like someone preparing to challenge your autonomy. Jess frowned. Challenge what now? Judge Hale gave me a sympathetic look. Your stability, your competency, your right to control your own assets. My stomach dropped. You mean guardianship? Jess froze. No way, that's insane. Is it? Hale asked softly. You've seen how she talks about your mental state. How she implies you're confused or overwhelmed. How she frames herself as your caretaker even in front of others. That's the first step. I felt my pulse in my ears. Loud, heavy, terrifying. She would never, I began. Jess cut me off. Ava, she absolutely would. I shut my eyes, trying to breathe through the rising panic. Judge Hale placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. You are not alone. You have witnesses now, evidence, and you will have legal protection. Protection from my own sister, I whispered. Yes. The hallway was silent for a moment. Only my heartbeat filled the space between us. Then the ballroom doors burst open again. This time it was Lily. Her dress shimmered under the lights, but her face was twisted, streaked with smeared mascara, red blotches, wild fury. She looked both unhinged and theatrical, like a villain in a soap opera whose scene had gone off script. She stormed toward us, her heels hammering the floor. Jess stood instantly. Back off. Lily ignored her completely. Ava, she spat. What the hell did you think you were doing in there? I stiffened. I told the truth. The truth? She let out a manic laugh. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look unstable. You slapped me across the face. Her eyes flashed. Because you provoked me. No, Lily, I said softly. You did that on your own. A handful of guests had trickled into the hallway, watching the exchange like it was part of the entertainment. Lily turned on them with a trembling smile. She's confused. She's not well. She's been struggling. No, Judge Hale interrupted sharply. Lily froze, the smile wiped from her face.